Labor Day weekend. So today I want to take the opportunity to go over the conventional deadlift. The conventional deadlift is by far the greatest total body activation exercise ever created. Now, as a tactical athlete, the demand on our body for stability and strength under load is significantly higher than the average individual. This is part of the reason that the rate of back injuries is so high in the Army and throughout the military itself. So that being said, building strength throughout your trunk and core can severely lower the risk for back injuries and can improve overall quality of life for those suffering from chronic back pain. Now, to tie this into the Army Combat Fitness Test, the conventional deadlift has significant carryover into multiple ACFT events. As a strength building exercise, the conventional deadlift can be directly beneficial to your performance in stuff like the maximum deadlift, the standing power throw, the sprint drag carry, and even the leg tuck event. So this means if you're not training the conventional deadlift in your normal exercise routine, all you're doing is missing out on a huge opportunity to boost those ACFT scores in the future. So let's get into it. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, how do I perform the conventional deadlift? Before I get into that, I just want to take a quick moment to go over how you should start training for this, as far as the load that you're using, as well as form. So with any type of deadlift movement, conventional, sumo, the maximum deadlift, which uses the hex bar, in the ACFT itself, form is going to be very important here. Correct form is going to ensure that you're properly working the muscles that you're looking to work, but also to keep and prevent yourself from getting any type of injuries. So when you are doing these particular exercises, especially the conventional deadlift, you really only want to start working, if you can, with like a PVC pipe, an empty bar at first, and then you probably want to start training around 40 to 50% of your maximal load, if you do know what that maximal load is. If not, you can usually go somewhere around 40 to 50% of your body weight. As a starting point, you may need to go down from there or up from there, just depending on how that feels to you. But that's generally the range that you want to start training in when you're first doing these events. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when doing the conventional deadlift is figure out where your foot placement is going to be. Easiest way to do that is to start with your feet roughly hip width apart. You don't want to go too wide, don't want to go too narrow. You're going to want to start with your toes pointed straight forward. Okay, so from this position, which is a typical power stance, what you're going to do is just jump off your feet lightly and land on the ground. Now, I want you to, at this point, pay close attention to the angle that your feet landed at. That's generally going to put you into a very anatomical position for you to then go through and apply force through the ground. So this is a stance that you can start with. As you get used to doing it in this stance, you can start to adjust things slightly if you need to, whether it be to bring your feet out ever so slightly, bring them in ever so slightly. I typically have a somewhat more narrow stance, so slightly less than hip width apart, but my toes are pointed in the same general angle as they would be when I jump off the ground and land on the ground. Another thing you want to pay attention to as you come up to the bar is that the bar itself is roughly over the midline of your foot. You don't want it to be too far forward where it's touching your shins, and you don't want to be too far back where it's over your toes. All that's going to do is put you in an unideal position once you get down to grasp the bar. So now that I've figured out where my foot placement is going to be, the next thing I want to think about and figure out is where my arm placement and my hand placement is going to be on the bar. Easy way to do this is if you take your arms nice and straight, hold them at your sides, you bend at the hips, knees, and ankles, you just grasp the bar, keeping your arms nice and straight. As you can see, my arm's not too far in to the point where it's pushing in on my knees and pushing my legs inward, but it's also not too far out where I'm wasting energy. So nice and straight down. You almost want to think of your arms as if your arm was a string with a hook attached to it at the end, and you're just hooking that onto the bar, keeping your shoulders over the bar. During the entire portion of the lift, you're going to want to make sure that you're keeping that that picture in your head of that string and hook, because you want to keep your arm nice and straight. That way you're not putting unnecessary strain on your bicep through the movement. So as you can see, when I grasp the bar, I'm grasping it in a pronating grip. You may see several different ways of holding the bar. I'm sure if you've seen anyone deadlift before, you've probably seen people using alternating grips. You may have even seen people using hook grips, which means you wrap your thumb around the bar and then wrap your hands around your thumb to help hold the bar. The reason that I start with just a pronating grip for my warm-ups is that I like to try and at least get a little bit of grip strength work in there as well. So by holding it in this way, I'm getting a little bit more grip strength work, as well as I'm keeping from creating any unnecessary unbalances. At some point, the bar will get to the point, as you progress, it'll get to the point where it's too heavy to hold in a pronating grip. You may need to switch to an alternating grip, or you may need to switch to a hook grip. If you're less experienced in lifting, I would probably stay away from hook grip, but it can be beneficial. So this next step is going to be one of the most important parts of the actual deadlift movement, and that's setting yourself up for the actual deadlift. So what you're going to do is you're going to grasp the bar, all right, in your grip with the bar placed and your feet placed where we just figured out is optimal for you. All right, so you're gonna grasp the bar. What you're gonna do is you're gonna breathe into your stomach, nice big breath into your stomach, and you're gonna push out against your own abs with your lungs. Basically what you're doing here is expanding the diaphragm, creating almost like your own weight belt. It's a natural weight belt, and that's gonna create a lot of pressure inside of your trunk to create some stability to help protect your spine, okay? So you're gonna take that deep breath in, and what you're going to do is you're going to sink your hips down while simultaneously retracting your shoulder blades and activating your lats. All right, you're going to do that by pulling your shoulders back and down, activating those lats, keeping everything nice and tight. You almost kind of want to picture pinching like a pencil or a pen in between your shoulder blades in the back, retracting your shoulder blades back together. So you're going to do that all simultaneously while creating as much pressure throughout your body as possible. So as you can see, when I do this, because I'm creating so much pressure, the bar is actually starting to come off the ground before I even actually start the lift. All right, so as I come down, sink my hips, creating pressure and tension as I pull my shoulders back and down, activating my lats. All right. So when you're down there, your shoulders should be back and down, but also over the bar, like what we talked about, imagining that string with the hook holding onto the bar. As you're doing that, your shins are actually going to come forward to touch the bar. One key thing here is, and I just mentioned it, the shoulder being over the bar is going to ensure that you're not sinking down too far into almost like a squatting position. You want to still have that shoulder over the bar, will keep you from sinking your hips too low, which is not ideal for a deadlift. So now that you've achieved the proper setup for your deadlift, you're going to go through the actual motion of the deadlift itself. So what I want you to think about here as you begin the motion off the ground and bring the bar off the ground is first pushing the ground away from you with your legs. Once the bar reaches roughly around your knees, I want you to think about squeezing your glutes really hard and driving your hips forward to complete the upward motion. So what that's going to look like is as I come down, I create my pressure like so. I'm going to push the ground away from me, and then as I reach roughly this point, I'm squeezing my glutes to drive my hips forward to achieve full lockout at the top. I don't want to overextend my hips, but I do want my glutes to be nice and tight, squeezed with my hips locked in the open position in the front. I'm then going to lower the weight to the ground in a controlled manner. Again, controlled manner. You don't want to just drop the bar. All you're doing there is taking away from the eccentric portion of the motion, which does also help to build strength. So again, what that's going to look like from the side is as I come off the ground, I'm pushing away from the ground with my feet. Once I reach roughly here, driving my hips forward to complete the motion. As you can see, the path of my bar is in a generally straight line as it goes up as well as going down. So that just about wraps up the conventional deadlift. I just want to review a few key things here. So first, form is key. I know I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Make sure that you're getting the form down before you're adding any type of significant load, just to prevent any potential injuries. Second, protect your back. All right, make sure you're keeping your spine nice and straight throughout the entire movement, as well as working on creating that pressure in your abdomen, just like we talked about before. That's going to help protect your spine as you're going through this movement. And lastly, be smart. Don't let your ego get the best of you. It's very easy to say, hey, I want to throw as much weight on the bar as possible. All that's going to do is lead to back injuries. So be smart about your training. And just like anything else with exercise, start small, work your way up. As your tolerance for the weight increases, you'll be able to increase weight, and eventually you'll be able to lift a lot more. So as always, thanks for watching. Hit the like button below. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave that in the comments box, or you can send them directly to me and I'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Happy lifting, everyone.